What is good, my friends? My friends, we are going live today with Chris Kendall, The Raw Advantage, and we're going to be digging into some of the myths that might be kind of permeating this raw space, this raw vegan space. And one of his contributions to the new Raw Vegan Bundle is exactly that, busting some of these myths. So it's going to be really fun to be able to ask him some questions. And of course, for those of you guys joining in, maybe you've got some questions, be sure to type them. Okay, sorry about that. Looks like I had a little connection delay there, but hopefully we'll be good. Let's get Chris in here. A few of those things that are on your mind, but let's see if he gets the invite here. Hopefully the connection is good. Seems like internet's kind of weird for us today.
Going on,
Hey,
brother?
hey, my man, how you
I'm
doing?
doing good. I'm just a little sad now that I didn't man bun it up so we could be man bun brothers in this
Oh,
live. I might have to
oh,
do it right
man.
now. I might have to man bun myself right
Come
up.
on, let's get it
I
here. Let's redo it. I'm gonna go with you, bro. Let's do
how do you
this.
do it? How do you do it?
Oh,
What do you do? Because
that's
I end up with a bun on the top. I
okay,
rarely do the bun. What do I do?
right?
What should I do here? You
So,
got it, dude. Oh
oh,
my
yeah,
gosh.
get it. Just fluff it out, get it going
Yeah,
on, and then what I do. I mean, it's interesting because when I had long hair when I was back in high school, I would just do like the low ponytail in the back.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
never did the bun, but I just grab all the hair.
yeah, yeah.
You know, and then I'll just take my, little scrunchy thing and I'll put it through, but I don't pull all the hair through. And then I just wrap it back around itself,
Oh
grab the
gosh.
hair, loop it
Oh
around, and then,
gosh.
yeah.
You fast. I'm messing up. Wow, this is what this live is all about. It's
Hey,
about
man,
learning
you
how to do
know,
a man bun
but
proper.
I'm sure you're probably way faster at braiding than I am,
I
so
am really quick with braiding. I can
yeah.
do a lot of different braid
I need to
actions, but I'm gonna.
practice my braid. I had Lissa braid a couple, like a couple times, and it was pretty fun to be able to, yeah, just have it. Hey,
Yours is
look at
peeking
there,
up.
bro.
There we
Oh,
go. I also have to lean forward a little bit.
that's good, man. I
That feels
love it. I
better. I
love
feel ready now.
it. Dude, it's funny because like I watched a couple YouTubes. I was like, how do you even do a man bun? I don't even know. Like, because I would pull the hair through, and of course, that's a different kind of vibe. Sometimes it get all tangled when I'm trying to pull the thing off. So funny because that's like my go-to anymore. People are like, how do you do this? Or how do you change the, this or that? I'm like, just watch a YouTube. Like, YouTube it, man.
YouTube is pretty dang useful. I might have to do that myself to
Yeah.
perfect this technique, But I'm pretty happy with this.
I
It's
like
not
that,
bad.
bro.
Not bad.
That's looking pretty dang good, man. That's looking pretty dang good. You know, um, Yeah, YouTube can be really, really helpful in a lot of ways, but it also can be like super confusing when you're looking for, maybe
Huge.
some information that's kind of conflicting and such.
Yeah.
And that kind of, can tie into our topic for the day, misting the busts. Ooh,
Misting the bus. We gotta
that
miss
might be
those
kind of nice.
busts.
Maybe we should start a festival, just like a mist busting, or no, not
Dep-
mist, misting the
Depends what kind
bust.
of busts we're talking about, because a misting bust, it might be a wet t-shirt contest. Oh
That's what
gosh,
I'm.
what am I saying?
Hey, that's where my mind went. I don't know. I bet other people maybe too. But no, this is so cool, man, to connect. I know we didn't get to connect through this bundle. And of course, I say it every year, like we ought to be doing more lives throughout the
Yes,
year because there's lots of stuff to be talking about. And
me too.
a lot of really confusing information, for those who may be tapping into health and wellness and trying to figure out, what's the most optimum way to be living and eating. It's interesting because there's like all sorts of biohacking tricks and tips and such. And in this, I would imagine any niche, it doesn't matter what niche you're in, there's always going to be, these kinds of things, these polarities within. And
For sure.
yeah, over the years.
Outliers,
So yeah,
extreme one way or that, or just straight up misinformation.
right.
It's
Yeah,
definitely prevalent these days.
man. And fear like sells so good, it sells so good. Sometimes I'll
Yeah,
see information, I'm like, that's just like absolutely poppycock,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I kind of like, I admire the individual who is able to just put it out there, no shame, and they're
yeah,
marketing their thing. It's like, dang, that's brilliant marketing. Like, they got me kind of
yeah,
feeling a little scared, although, I do have a
yeah,
different lens on. So yeah, so I for whatever reason, man, like I did have like a few questions, that I wrote down, but I left them down in the truck and we're
Oh,
like needing to go live now. So whatever, we'll just flow with
I'll
it.
just
But
dance the whole time while you go to the truck. No, I'm just joking.
I,
I'll
I
just
could, but I mean, it's pretty
no, no.
simple, like straightforward.
Yeah,
What are some of these myths
yeah.
that you feel are like maybe let's start with like the top three myths. How about that? The top three myths in the raw food niche
Yeah.
that can really kind of, maybe derail somebody, in
Derails.
their, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's an important precursor too, because some of them they may not derail someone, but they may just be misinformation.
Mm,
I mean, the first one that comes to mind is one that I've really, I've talked about a ton. You know what I'm going to say is the mucoid plaque myth, and that is one of the biggest ones that is perpetuated with fear and disinformation and
yeah.
leads people to certain funnels or certain kind of products and stuff like that.
Mm,
And it's one that I've seen harm a lot of people, who just feel like they're never clean, and unless they do something that is a little more extreme or go and fast with somebody, that they're never going to get rid of it and never be able to absorb food and never be able to succeed with raw food. And yeah, so I mean, I don't know how far you want me to get in, but I'll mention them and then we
We
can do what we want
we
to
could go
do.
we could go
um
deep with this one, bro, because this is
yeah,
one I feel that most individuals who tap into this lifestyle, this diet of, eating predominantly raw foods or all raw foods, comes across this thing, this mucoid
yeah,
plaque, and you've got to get it out. And it's scary. Like I
oh
I
yeah.
know that you and I both were probably on that same trail. We're like, we got to get this stuff out of us.
I I'll
So,
be honest, I never was. I'll be very honest.
okay.
From
Yeah.
the first time I heard it over 20 years ago, I intuitively thought this is garbage.
Yeah.
Because I met colon hydrotherapists and stuff like that,
Gotcha.
but it did get me to dig deeper. And yeah, I went down that rabbit hole as deep as one can go
Mm,
beyond going to school to be able to cut inside bodies yourself, but
yeah.
talking to numerous people that I very much trust who have
Mm,
seen it firsthand, as well as numerous doctors and experts and looking into the
mm,
history and all that kind of stuff. But it is still prevalent, and
yeah.
when it's marketed as like you need to get rid of the demon within, it's like, well, that's the serpent within. It's holding you
Right.
back, and it's the cause of all your ills. And
Oh,
one bite of cooked food will make more mucoid plaque. And I mean, that does get into another myth I talk about, the cooked food myth. The idea that every type of cooked food is poison, toxic, will slow down your health. You can't be healthy unless
mm,
you're 100% raw 100% of the time. And all cooked food is the same. I think that's another one that harms people mentally, emotionally, can really create fear, can create shame, guilt, and
mm,
binge cycles and stuff
yeah.
like that. Um, and then one other I'll mention before we decide where we want to go with this. I think another one that is really harmful. I've even to myself at times felt like it's some of the worst information out there is what I call the less is more myth, or that
Mm,
you should really be focusing on eating less. Like, oh, you're new to this lifestyle? Well, don't eat too much. Like, eat less because it's better to eat less. And everyone eats way too much, and there's so much missing context there. And I've dug really deep into it, and even within say pranic circles and spirituality and stuff like that, I really believe it is very much misunderstood and misconstrued from caloric restriction studies, and also from just looking at yogic literature or Taoist literature into energy practices. Very much in my mind overstated, overblown, and detrimental, especially for people who are new to the lifestyle. We can talk about years and years and years and years and developing your practice and this and that and what that means. But again, I just think it's often much overstated and misunderstood. But out of all the 10 that I have here, I think those are probably the ones that actually will probably hurt people the most. Because I talk about the cure-all myth, the thought that, like, if you go raw, you'll cure absolutely everything. You know what I mean? That definitely can harm people as well.
mm,
Protein myth, like, but most people aren't going to be harmed by that, but it's the most common question from the outside. Where do you get your protein? And people think enzymes are the only reason to eat raw food, or the main reason to eat raw food. So I went into the enzyme myth with a little bit more about that. And there's other ones too, but those
yeah.
first three I mentioned, I think are the most harmful.
That's huge, man. I think that this book was such a great contribution to this year's bundle, and in a way, like I feel that for those of you guys, maybe you're like, what's the bundle? Maybe you're tuning in and you've never even heard about this. The Raw Vegan Bundle is going on right now. It comes around once a year. Today is the very last day. And Chris Kendall, who has been a raw foodie, a raw food enthusiast for what, nearly 20 years? 20 years now? Over 20 years?
2021 this right now. I'm just around this time celebrating my 21st. I'm
21st.
legal. I'm
So
legal
you're
everywhere, bro.
you're
Legal
legal.
everywhere.
You've unlocked the whole all the maps. You
Yeah,
can actually go out and drink, right? Yeah, I love it, man.
finally. Yeah,
So this is a really awesome contribution that Chris, put into the bundle this year, talking about these myths in this niche of raw veganism, and yeah, like you said that, the first one, the mucoid plaque, and
yeah.
for me personally, like you said, you didn't necessarily go down that. I was working in the medical field at the time, and I remember really researching a lot about that aspect, and of course like the parasites that like live within us and all these kinds of things. And you start to ingest this information on a daily basis, and it
Mhm.
starts to shift the way that you're viewing what's really going on inside, even though you can't really see what's going on inside. You're like, oh, this
Yeah,
must be happening, like I got to get this out.
yeah.
um I didn't actually, there was actually a point that's, I think, right when I found Lissa. And I just was like, you know what? Like cutting processed food from my life and just eating more raw fruits and vegetables has to be beneficial in a lot of ways. Like,
Yeah.
why am I going to obsess over trying to, get the slough off the mucus lining of my colon?
Mhm.
Yeah, like you said, you've been tapping into this and really studying for couple decades,
Yeah.
and you put out a
Not that I've been
video.
like in
Right.
the book every day, just
Yeah,
mucoid
sure.
plaque every day,
Right,
but
right.
every chance I could get talking to an expert
Yeah.
or looking deeper or talking to other raw food leaders and fasting experts, I took that
Cool.
as an opportunity to learn, and not just that
Mhm.
topic, many topics. But
Yeah.
that's been a big one that I've always wanted to bring more light to.
I really appreciate that you put that out there. I know both Liz and I were eagerly anticipating your release of that video. So for those of you who are tuning in, Chris Kendall has a YouTube channel, The Raw Advantage. Go check him out,
Yeah.
and be sure to watch that. What did you title that one about the mucoid plaque? What was that one called
Uh,
again?
Debunking the mucoid plaque
There we go.
myth, I believe, or
Debunk.
debunking mucoid. Yeah,
Yeah.
debunk and mucoid
It's
plaque,
a
and you'll see
really
it.
great video, and I feel like you were very gracious in your delivery, and you were all inclusive. You weren't trying to bash anybody or make people
No.
feel bad. Like, as someone who is, I'm not, like, me and Lissa both aren't like hardcore critics. We thought
Mhm.
you did really well with that.
Thank
And
you.
of course, I know that it was, that's got to be kind of a tricky one to put out. But you've been gathering information on this particular topic for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I feel that, yeah, if somebody has, it's interesting because sometimes it's really tricky to take off that lens and try to put on a different lens.
Yeah.
And I know that, we as people sometimes can really hold on to certain dogmas and these
For
kinds
sure.
of things to, yeah, it's hard to release these sorts of things. I know that I got in your comment section, and you handled yourself really well there. I know some people are
Thanks.
up in arms over this particular topic because that is like a solid foundation of why they're raw or why they're cleansing. And
Yeah. Or their
so that's,
business,
yeah, what's that?
or their business, or their
Yeah,
self-identity. Like they feel like I
totally.
finally did this, and I
Yeah.
did something that was really, really challenging, and
Yes.
now I'm this, and I need to tell other people. And it's like, but if I
Right.
don't have that, what's going on? I'm a raw foodist without
Yeah.
the like it
The
can be really
identity.
tricky for sure.
Yeah.
And
Wrapped up
I now
identity.
I can't even say where I live, and I have to wear a mask most of the time because I'm continually getting threats. No, I'm joking. I'm sorry.
I'm like, whoa, bro. Like, oh my gosh, they're coming after you. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's being one, mucoid plaque.
Yeah.
So let's say just for kicks and giggles, let's say somebody who, you've kind of been growing like a relationship with, maybe one of your skater homies,
Mhm.
and they came onto that trail
Mhm.
of how they need to cleanse themselves to, get this plaque out. What would, and they're asking like genuinely for your guidance. What would be something that you would tell them? Like, how would you lead them in that situation?
Well, it in part depend how well I knew them, I guess, and
Yeah,
also, if they're open to hearing what I have to say, and
sure.
in general, I'm just super straight up, like, I just really straight up and matter of factly say, like, hey, like, I understand that you came across this information and it's really compelling, but I'll be honest, I've been researching this for a really long time with people who work directly inside the human body at a cellular level, from mouth to anus, has like studied it microscopically and really understands how things work. And I've done my research. I've looked at it from as many angles as possible, considering, what the people who promote this say, the origins and history of it. And I can clearly 100% with all confidence say that it is not true whatsoever.
Mhm.
And then from there, if they like say like, oh my gosh, really? Like, I'd be like, yeah, and like if they want to know what it is, then I'll lay it down for them. I've been doing that for a while since before I dropped the video, but I haven't been super outward with it before that online, just because of course I want to wait until I put everything together instead of like little teeny crumbs here and there, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
that's how I've gone about it, and to me it doesn't matter the myth. If I'm really confident and I've learned something, and if I'm not sure, I'll be honest, right? But
Mhm.
if I feel really confident and someone is asking me a question, especially on a one-on-one, I'll just be straight up and very blatantly honest and
Mm.
do whatever I can to help clear the murky water of this wild wild west that we call social media influence.
I love that, man. I love that. Yeah. And, of course, like keywords there, like the person is receptive, they're open,
Yeah,
they're genuinely interested because maybe they have been ingesting information from different sources and they're really trying to figure out if this is something that they should be concerned about.
yeah,
And I know that, from what we've seen over the years, like it can kind of really be one of those things that is detrimental to someone's health in a lot of
mm,
ways, not only the physical but the mental aspect. And I
yeah.
see Tessa jumped in here. Tessa, good to see you. She says,
Oh, hey,
ooh,
Tessa.
I joined at the right time, been trying to find out more about mucoid plaque. Thank you. Going to check out the documentary. Yeah, do, Tessa, go check out Chris's documentary on it. It was really well done, and it's fun, it's lighthearted, but it's packed with information. Yeah,
And
we
I just wanted to
really,
say
yeah,
too, like you mentioned, all of these myths and this book and mucoid plaque, it's about the topic, it's about
yeah,
the information.
yeah.
It's not my mission to put down others or to make other people wrong. It's not about any individuals, even though I may pull some insights or some things that other people have said about it and utilize that to make the case, right? But it's not about people. It's about the whole concept of it, because I've seen so many people harmed by this, and other people I know who've been doing this and coaching people since the 90s have seen so much harm from it from the 90s. And this is just something that has been cycled through and perpetuated over and over again. And because now social media is so big and, so many people are really focused on virality, and making a living off of this, it has really reared its ugly mucoid head out, and is really just it's out there so much. And
Mhm.
yeah, I couldn't stand by, even though I don't love controversy. I don't love all the eyes. I don't necessarily absolutely love responding to 300 comments on the same question,
Don't
basically
blame you.
saying, well, I seen it come out,
Right.
so you're wrong, like,
Yeah.
and that's basically the whole argument on the other side is like, well, I've seen it come out. Like, until you've fasted and seen it come out, you don't even know. And it's like, well, I have seen it come out, and I've also talked to lots of people, and
Yeah.
those people who promote it I've talked to, and their best evidence is, well, I seen it come out, so you're wrong. And when I question them, like, well, what exactly is it? They're like, I don't even care what it is. I just know it comes out. And it's like,
Right.
okay, well, that's a very, very low bar of evidence. Let's look a little bit deeper,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah, and of course, like we're not at a stage necessarily where we all have access to be able to go have our eliminations, dropped off at the lab and to really see what's going on.
Yeah,
And then of course, yeah, there's like the bentonite clay, the psyllium husk activated charcoal that
yeah,
is kind of commonly used for that cleanse. And of course, I didn't want to have like this whole live be all about that, but that is such a big one, I feel like, in this community, in
yeah,
the raw vegan niche. And it's
yeah,
so just like everything in this world, there's such polarity
yeah,
between camps of mindsets within this this community.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because just like the world, like we could
Yeah.
all be kind of on the same team. Like we want to help people get off processed foods. We want to help people eat more fruits and vegetables. Yet I can't stand this person because they don't have the same lens on, and they're not promoting what I'm trying to promote.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting
Yeah.
how,
There's
yeah,
just
the
so
fear
much throwing.
and
Sorry.
go ahead. What were you gonna
I
say?
was,
There's so much
I
what?
was just gonna say there's just so much throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and it's
Yeah,
like even those people that do promote that, I know I agree with probably way more than I disagree with them. And again, that's why
sure.
it's not about individuals. It's about
Mhm.
raising the bar of the information we share to make this not only easier and more streamlined for the people that are applying it, but also from the outside looking in, that it raises that bar so they don't look at us as crazy raw foodists that are just spouting complete nonsense, right?
Yeah,
So, because sadly it is, there's the baby out with the bathwater, and way too often from the outside communities, maybe a medical community or athletic community, they just look at us and they see one thing like that, and then there's like, oh, those raw foodists are crazy, and they don't even consider a raw food diet because they think we're nuts.
right. It's so true. And that's one thing I've always really appreciated about you, how you bring it to the table. You could bring it with such compassion and such non-judgment, right? And that's a real, that's like it, it sometimes can be hard to find. I feel like people a lot of times have some sort of an agenda, which of course, we all have to make a living, we can make a living through sharing our knowledge and these sorts of things, but it's really, really interesting how many people can be kind of like looped into this thing, buy the program, do the cleanse, get the kit,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily like changing the mindset, so to speak.
Mhm.
Um, to maybe like hop off this one,
Mhm.
what would be another one of those myths that you feel like should be addressed, first and foremost, next to the mucoid plaque?
What do you think? Do you want to tackle cooked food
Mm.
or the less is more?
Ooh, those are good. Okay, let's start with the cooked food. Let's start with
Okay.
that.
Yeah, so I mean, I remember when I first kind of got into raw food, there was a popular book, Nature's First Law, which I can't mention it without mentioning also that it was plagiarized word for word without permission,
Oh,
which just to
I
me
remember hearing
blew me
that.
away after.
Yeah.
Yeah. But besides that, the end of every single chapter is cooked food is poison. Like
Mm,
that's the last line of every single chapter. Cooked food is poison. And hey, I understand the motivation. You're excited about raw food. You notice the huge difference it makes when you apply raw
mm,
food. You see a little bit of information talking about the toxins formed within certain types of cooked food, say like acrylamide with, browned carbohydrates and, you know, heterocyclic amines from, meats that are charred and all this kind of stuff. And you hear about the study where it says, like any cooked food ingested raises white blood cells, raises blood pressure and basically creates an emergency system or emergency reaction in your body. And it's just like, well, of course, now I must eat raw food all the time.
mm,
And it can be a really good motivation. It can keep people there. But it's not totally accurate. And it can also really hurt people
mm,
because then they feel like, well, if I slip up, then I'm less than, I'm a bad
right.
person. I've basically failed. I'm now a failure, so I might as well just go all the way down to Chimichanga Land and Burger King, and it can really bring about major binge purge,
Mm,
hidden kind of secret closet eating cycles for a lot of people. I've coached so many people with so much guilt and shame around this.
mm,
I've had a lot of guilt and shame around it in my life. It's really been
mm,
super hard on me because if you believe that absolutely all cooked food is poison, that any cooked food choice that you could make is just poison and toxic, and you can never heal or be healthy if you eat it, well, you're going to stay away as much as you can. You're going to be pulling that elastic back as far as you can, and then all of a sudden, when it snaps, you're probably not going to go have some steamed broccoli.
right.
You're going to probably go again to Chimichanga Land and have 15 fajitas. It's just it doesn't really serve people in the bigger picture while it sounds compelling in the beginning.
Mm,
um, and I mean, I could just start by saying, like, I always have a hard time pronouncing it. It's like a leukoidosis. It's the process where when you ingest some kinds of cooked food that you get that white blood cell
mm,
activation. And in the actual guy who discovered this and wrote about this, he also mentioned how, like, if you just have a little bit of raw food with the cooked food, then it blunts or completely makes that issue not happen, and that not all cooked foods do it. But
Mm-hmm.
sadly, some raw foodists, well-meaning, cherry pick that information and just say all cooked food, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then that's what gets spread around and again and again and again and goes in these cycles like a lot of misinformation does, that is either just super compelling or can go viral or just suits one's bias,
Yeah.
right? Um, but the reality is, like, there's a huge difference, like not only in terms of nutrition, but in terms of what is formed during the cooking process from
Mm-hmm.
wet heat, like boiling, steaming, or like a Instapot that is like steam and pressure, compared to like deep frying,
Yeah.
baking, frying on the pan, barbecuing, all these things. And so if we're talking about things like steamed greens or broccoli or cauliflower, carrots, like basically like simply wet cooked vegetables, right? It doesn't really matter what kind of vegetable. Toxins aren't formed. It's
Right.
not going to create this situation where your body's running into an emergency. Yes, there are nutrients that are diminished, destroyed, or lost in the water. Usually the heat sensitive vitamins. Some are made more bioavailable. And this chapter isn't like, hey, like, well, everyone should be eating cooked food then because it's better for you. Like, I have the strong view and reality knowing that raw foods that are easy to digest, that we enjoy, are going to be more nutritious for us per calorie. And if we pick those ones you absolutely love, it stands to be in my mind, the healthiest way you can absolutely do it. But you're not going to ruin your health by including some steamed greens or some broccoli or a potato on occasion, if that helps you maintain a balanced, happy, consistent lifestyle, right? And
Yeah.
instead of these sharp back and forths and guilt. Like, I know when I first slipped off the diet, I had so much guilt about it. Like, I kid you not, Nate, like when I slipped off hard because again, I pulled it back so far and I ended up basically starving myself for over a week, running on fumes, and I was at a super low body weight
Mm-hmm.
around people that were drinking, smoking, eating McDonald's all day, old friends that I had formed those habits with. And I snuck off because I was losing it. Like, I felt like my depressive tendencies coming back. I'm like going crazy, and I really slipped off. Like, went to a fast food place after first having a Snickers bar, and I swore I would never do that. Up and down, I said I'd
Right.
rather fast until I died instead of do that. But when the crap hit the fan, and I found myself back at the bottom of that pit, physically, mentally, emotionally,
Yeah.
um, I loathed myself. I actually genuinely hated myself, and I felt like a loser and like a hypocrite. And I didn't share that for years. Like, I didn't feel like I could, because I held that for years. Like, I held that emotion and that negativity towards myself. And
Mm-hmm.
imagine what that does to you,
Yeah.
like, when instead, if I would have been a little softer, maybe it would have been different. I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
I just want to prevent that pulling back of the elastic and a more sound, rational, compassionate view about this, and help people have more patience, compassion, and understanding about nutrition, so that they don't run into that same self-loathing and guilt and shame spiral.
Man, that's so huge. It's so interesting how hard we are on ourselves. And if that could have been measured, like, that point in time when you were, say, that rubber band, you got let go, whoosh, you're like back to that space, you go to the fast food. It's so interesting if levels of cortisol and these
Oh,
different things, like what
oh
is
man.
shame and what is guilt like really do to us on the cellular level. Of course, that's, it's fascinating to think about. Like, we have no real
Yeah.
way to measure that like accurately, like, just you and I, maybe in the labs, but it's got to be worse for you than, getting off the trail for a moment and being like, oh wait, hold on, like I'm supposed to be over there.
I,
I better get back on the trail.
I
But it's
guarantee you,
yeah.
I guarantee you that that shame, guilt, and self-loathing that I held for years was way, way worse for me than the day and a bit that food went
Yeah.
through my system, and then I
Right.
cleared it out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I saw my buddy in here, Chris. Chris, if you're still in here, what's up, my man? Hope you're having a great Mother's Day. Give Gina a big hug for us. He is a buddy of mine who isn't vegan. He's not raw, but he has been eating more raw and he's shifting up his diet. He's starting to like do more oatmeal for breakfast, like, eliminating some of the animal products. And he said to me one day, he's like, yo, Nate, I went to Del Taco the other day, and he's like, bro, I felt so so horrible. He's like, I don't think I'm going to be able to eat that stuff anymore because like I just felt so bad. So sometimes I feel like it could be really positive, a real beneficial
Yes.
thing to have that experience and to really like recognize like how you're feeling, you know? And of course, I feel that the majority of the population is so out of touch with how they actually feel because we're so numbed in so many different ways. And you know, to have that is I thought that was a pretty powerful thing for him to recognize, like, man, I just feel like warmed over pig poo, you know, and I don't want to feel like this. Maybe I shouldn't be eating that. So, and you know, but what I did like is, you know, how he wasn't necessarily like bashing himself, like, you know, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I totally messed up, like, you know,
Yeah.
and just beating himself up. And we are so good
Yeah.
at doing that. Like we're really, really good. I feel like most people are really good at building other people up,
Hmm.
but like we don't really hold that same kind of space for ourselves, which is so interesting. You know, it's so fascinating how we're so good at judging ourselves and beating ourselves up, holding ourselves to a certain standard. And if we don't follow through, you know, boom, you're bashing yourself. Like you said, you've dealt with that for years, holding on to that, which, you know,
Yeah.
I just want to give you high fives, bro, to be at this space to where you can share that openly, and you know, like you've healed from that, you've moved past that shame that you held. But you know, I do feel that it can be a powerful thing
Huge.
to have that rubber band, you know, whip, if you know the individual can get back on track. Like what do we really want? Like I always say, like, we're all going to die. Like, it's, you know,
Yeah.
nobody gets out
Yeah.
alive. Like, we're going to die. What kind of quality of life do we want to have? How do we want to feel?
Yeah.
And the cooked food thing is so interesting. It's so funny how, I mean, it's funny and it's sad, of course, like all
Yeah.
in the same thing. Like cooked food is like such a bad word in the
Yeah.
raw food community. Oh, cooked food. Oh my God, they're having some cooked, you know, like they're not raw
Yeah.
anymore. You know, like it's so crazy
Looking
how
at the
it
plate.
is. Yeah, look at it, and it's so funny too, like how you know, John Kohler, you know, used the term heat processed, and I'm sure it's been used before, but I was like, oh, it's funny. It's like, you know, how can we skirt around the cooked food term? You know, oh, it's heat processed. You know, like
Yeah.
how has it been heat processed? And like you said, you know, there's different variables
Huge. Yeah.
that we have when we steam as opposed to like boil, and you know, even though you might be diminishing or destroying certain nutrients, certain, you know, vitamins and minerals are being leached out, there's still a
Hmm.
good amount of nutrients in these sorts of foods. And I do like how you said, if that's something that's going to keep the individual going on this
Yeah.
trail, like, you
Yeah.
know, maybe they have to have a potato every day. I personally, I don't necessarily follow this, but I
Hmm.
do really like the raw till four, right? Freely the
Yeah.
banana girl, like,
Yeah.
coined that term. I'm not sure, you know, where she got that, but it's a great, and you know,
Mhm.
for the average individual, you know, you got raw breakfast, raw
Awesome.
lunch,
Yeah.
raw snacks, and then you have your cooked dinner. Like, no sense in
Awesome.
trashing yourself because you're not all raw, you know. Um, and but of course, like you said, there are different levels. So, you know, and when you start to research in this area, you can see like, oh wow, there's actually like we're changing the molecular structure of the molecules of what we're
Mhm.
cooking, and this
It's
is kind
crazy.
of detrimental to certain aspects to the body, right? Like,
It's
you know,
huge.
charred, you
That's
know, like you
very
said,
different.
it's so different than
Charred meats.
having some, yeah, some having some steamed broccoli. But like you
Yeah.
said too, a lot of times people aren't necessarily, you know, because we're so extreme and we're, you know, we want things like right now, we want to feel better now, and
Yeah.
we, you know, we need to heal this thing. For those people who are on like a like actual healing journey, as much as the word journey kind of like cringes me out anymore because it's so overplayed, for those people who are on that path, really trying to heal themselves, like, you know, my heart goes out, and I know yours
Yeah.
too, and Lissa as well. Like,
Absolutely.
that's a scary place to be.
Yeah.
And it can be a place that, you know, you are like pulling at straws, and you want this to be healed. You want, it's an all or nothing kind of thing,
Yeah.
you know. So that's a whole different topic and a whole different avenue and lens. But for the average individual, right? Like having some, I mean, you know, Lisa and I, we're like, you know, we're trying to get more people to just eat more raw fruits and vegetables.
Me
Like, you don't have to be
too,
like,
man. Me too. Yeah.
yeah. And I know you're there
Yeah.
too, bro. We love you for
Yeah.
that. We love, like, you know, who you are in the space. And Tessa had mentioned here, I do want to get to some of these questions here. Tessa had mentioned, you know, thanks so much for the freeze thaw method. The freeze thaw method Kendalized.
Yeah, Kendall.
Kendalized. That's what we've been saying. I've been trying to say that more often. Like, just kendalize it. It's totally dialed if you're kendalize it. So, for those to put this into context for you guys, what kendalizing is, and I'm not sure if Chris came up with this. I can't really picture that he came up with this, but he's the one that made it popular in our lives. So, what you do, this is so amazing. I
Yeah,
personally loved steamed vegetables. I eat
yeah.
steamed broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, root vegetables from time to time, like at least a few times a month, and I really
Hmm.
enjoy them.
Hmm.
And but to get that same kind of effect is what you do is you would take like your cauliflower, or as Chris calls it, the ghost broccoli. Love that term. It's the ghost broccoli. You
Yeah,
freeze the cauliflower, break it up into chunks, or you could freeze the whole crown,
yeah,
freeze it, and then
yeah,
what that does is water expands in the cell, right, and makes it a little bit
yeah,
softer to where when you thaw it's a little bit more relaxed.
yeah,
And after you freeze that cauliflower, you guys, it's like steamed
yeah.
cauliflower. It's so interesting, the texture. So that's what kendalizing is. And tell us real quick, bro, how has this like changed the game for you?
Uh, thanks, man. It's so funny. Yeah, Dr. Rick mentioned or came up with that kendalizing. Head
Yeah,
bless
we're
Dr.
like, we're
Rick too.
running with it. That's the
Yeah.
term, man. We're running with it.
I'll have a hard time saying it myself, but if it catches on, I'll be very very honored, 100%, and I'll joke and say about it too. But yeah, I mean, I'd never seen anyone else doing it, and I just started doing it many, many years ago, and I just really noticed that it basically makes it pretty much the same as cooked, but you're not going to have the same nutrient loss, and it's also really useful for buying a lot of produce at a time if it's a discount or, on special, and then you can just, put it in there before to have it pre-prepped and ready to just make stuff really, really quick. But yeah, I love it. It's changed my life in the way that I guess I used to eat more salads and more greens, and I still like greens and salads, but I'll be honest, I truthfully prefer candleized veggies over greens most of the time. And so I think that might have been the first time I really said it like
It sounds
outwardly.
great, bro. It
Um,
rolled right off your tongue. I
yeah, yeah.
perfect. I would.
Yeah, I just candleize it, and then I have some curry, I have a stew, I have some wings. Like for example, with making the cauliflower wings, like I remember before I made a recipe using just raw cauliflower, and it makes a crunchy wing that is really tasty. But if you candleize it first, and the benefit of that too is the sauce sticks to the frozen cauliflower or broccoli much, much better, so it coats it really thick, and you can just take that candleized veggie right out of the freezer and then coat it in a sauce, throw it in the dehydrator until that outside
Mm,
coating gets kind of just a little bit dry and crispy, and boom, they're juicy. Then they're juicy and
yeah,
soft,
juicy.
like so juicy. Yeah, so
Uh,
yeah, I love it because I mean I like variety and I really love veggies too. I love broccoli, I love cauliflower, I love like you can even take say cabbages, which are
mm,
super
mm.
inexpensive, cut them into noodles, freeze them, and then they turn like sautéed cabbage noodles. They're
It's
ridiculous.
soft.
Or
Yeah.
so soft. I mean, you can use whole leaves. That's how I first. I think that might have been the first one that I discovered was just using that with cabbage to make cabbage rolls.
Okay.
And it just made
Yeah.
beautiful cabbage rolls, right? So, I mean, that's a great way to resist pulling that elastic back, and that was that's really was my focus in the beginning. Like when I first went raw, it was really simple, hygienic. I would have never thought of these things. It was just like fresh fruit and tender greens, and that's really it. Like I thought I was bad in my first 5 years if I had looked at a hot pepper. Like I remember the first time after 5 years of hygienic eating, wanting to buy a hot pepper because I bought a book that said like I have the secret to the best recipes in the world, and the secret was adding hot peppers and garlic. And I was like, well, damn it, like I don't want those things. I'm like I haven't eaten those for 5 years, and I honestly remember Nate going to the grocery store to buy a hot pepper to put in my stew to follow this recipe. And I remember looking back and forth to make sure no one was watching when I grabbed the hot pepper and put it in my cart because I felt ashamed of it, right? That's like, but like this kind of plays into that same thing. Like, is there any other diet where someone would feel guilty for having a piece of steamed broccoli or having a hot pepper? Like,
Right.
in a lot of cases, these would be the healthiest foods that anyone would be eating.
Right.
It would be healthier than what they eat in a couple of weeks. And yet, we can actually make it toxic for ourselves by all the worry and stress and guilt and shame and judgment and fear. And, like, I would honestly contend, and I can really say this with clarity because I've coached so many people over the last 16 years, like I've seen people do the diet perfectly,
Mm.
but really suffer because of their mind,
Right.
because of the guilt, because of the stress, and before when we were talking about that too, it's like stress has such a huge, huge impact. And
Yeah.
even let's say you have a degenerative disease, and yeah, you want to walk that tightrope and line all your cards up and do the best you absolutely can. If sticking to 100% raw means you're 100% raw, but you're 100% stressed, well, guess what? It'd actually be healthier for you to be able to enjoy what you're doing and eat clean and enjoy lots of raw foods. But if a little bit of cooked this or that is simple, that can still be a part of a healing journey, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
there may be some disagreement around that, but I feel very confident in saying that, especially again when we're comparing stress levels and all those different
So,
factors. But
I
either
love
way,
that
for the
outlook.
average person, man, like, I mean, I've often thought of this too, and this kind of goes into a different myth, so I won't go too far into it, like the fat myth.
Mhm.
But some people, they'll like, I'll stay 100% raw, but to stay 100% raw, I need to eat a whole jar of nut butter for the whole, for the day. And it'd be healthier to instead include some steamed veggies than to eat an
Totally.
entire jar of nut butter.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like you might be raw, but I'm a raw foodist because I want to feel happy. I want to
Mm.
have a good relationship with myself. I want to have a good relationship with food.
Mm.
I want to feel my absolute best, and that's why I stick with low-fat raw food. But I'm not a raw foodist to be a raw foodist, to be that as my identity, for that to be a
Mm.
label, and to label anyone who doesn't follow that as less than, and
Mm.
unfortunately, anything like this can be an ego trap, and I've been trapped in it at times for sure. We can find ourselves on a pedestal and think like, oh, well, I'm hot shit because I eat raw food. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, be proud of it. It's great. It's amazing. It makes a huge difference. But as soon as it turns into pride and looking down or looking down on ourselves, if we slip from
Mm.
that, that's when I think we can actually cause damage to ourselves and others.
That's so clean, bro. I love that outlook. I just want to address some of these here, Chris. Back a little ways. I'm not sure if Brucey's still in here. Any thoughts on the liver gallbladder flesh?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll just start by saying, there's two ways of looking at health creation.
Mm.
One is that we need to direct our clean or cleansing. We need to direct our body,
Mm.
and that we know better, or some really smart, detox expert knows better than the body, and they look at you and go, oh, well, you actually, what you need is this, and it's like,
Mm.
okay. I mean, that's the allopathic model.
Yeah.
It's like trying to treat symptoms and trying to use outside stimulus, to stimulate the body into a healing reaction by irritating it, for
Mhm.
the most part. In some cases, they can try and work by supporting it with certain nutrition, right?
Mhm.
But oftentimes there's the stimulation aspect. um, I, I don't really mesh with that model. I understand that there can be a time and place for stimulation. There can be a time and place for the allopathic model. It can save lives in
Mm.
emergency situations. It's very valuable. I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and paint the all doctors with the same brush as like, well, they don't know about raw food nutrition, so they're all garbage. But
Yeah.
that's often in the movement too.
Sure.
Um, but the health model instead really bows down to the majesty and miracle that is the human body, that is
Yeah.
nature, that is the creator and what we are. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like even the most intelligent person isn't even as intelligent as like a square inch of your body and what's going on in there at all times without
100%.
thought, without anything, right?
100%.
And so to me, it's like I'm not concerned about what my liver is doing. I'm just, instead focused on providing the foods, the environment, the sleep, the water, like all the aspects of health for my body to run and function perfectly because we are self-healing, we're self-cleansing, we're self-directed, we're
Mhm.
everything, like our body knows how to do it. We don't have to put a lot of thought into it beyond just give it what it needs. So
Yeah.
that's the base of what, that question. The other aspect of it though is, and just from that area of just kind of being straight up, it's just garbage information. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. It's just straight up
Mhm.
garbage. It's been
Yeah.
very thoroughly studied many times, and consuming the lemon and the oil and all these different things, it forms fatty stones made from what you're consuming, and it's actually really hard on your body to be doing that protocol. So yeah, stay far away, support your body with good nutrition and lifestyle habits, and trust in it and have gratitude that we have this amazing vessel and we have the Garden of Eden around us again. It's like enjoy it. When somebody's trying to convince you of something from a place of fear, and then hey, buy this, and this is the only way you're going to heal, at least be a little bit skeptical, or at least do a little bit more research and get more well-rounded kind of views on there.
I love that. That is such a great thing to really live by. It can be so like it's like a funnel. You can get sucked into certain people's analogies and their protocols and their concepts. If it's tricky to keep that discerning mind into, to
Yeah.
question like, how is this? But yeah, like you said, man, these bodies are self-healing. You cut yourself, like you don't rub salt and dirt into it every day, and it's gonna heal itself. So what can we do to support ourselves through all the mechanics that are going on? Like right now, like it's so interesting. You said, we're not even as smart as 1 square inch, 1 square centimeter. All the things that are going on inside right now, we're not telling it like, hey, make sure you breathe. Okay, send the blood, it's just happening. But what can
Yeah,
we do to
yeah.
support ourselves the best? It's so interesting that raw foods, I mean, as crazy and as extreme as it may seem to the majority of the world, like that's the best way to support ourselves through these things. So it's really,
Yeah.
really good. I loved your aspect there. And Eric says here, such an encouraging talk, especially for me as I'm transitioning to high raw. So glad you're here. If you're still here, Erica, so glad. And Chris, be sure if you're not following Chris Kendall, The Raw Advantage, a wealth of information, an amazing soul, and someone I feel very proud to call my homie.
Right
Um,
back at you, my
the
brother. 100%. Thank you.
the Kendallized method, is so good. Tessa says here, wow, Chris, the honesty and vulnerability, you're helping me and others to release our own shame. Thank you. That is so good.
Honor and
Tessa, we love you
pleasure.
so much.
Absolutely. Much,
And
much love.
yeah, and then we have here, hey, I don't know if my love's in here, raw food romance, kendalizing,
Yeah.
she says.
Yeah.
Wendy says here, I made the pea dip with the twist. Hey, that's excellent. I'm excited to hear about your twist. Uh, Lissa says, oh my God, the best ever. Yes. Tessa says, wow, sauteed kendalized cabbage. I know we have not tried that, Chris, so
Wow.
we're gonna have to give that a shot.
And I
Um,
tell you, man, just
yeah,
briefly to say that,
yeah,
like
yeah.
you have some fresh cucumber, some koodles, right?
Okay.
Maybe you have a couple Napa doodles, with the Napa
Napa
cabbage,
doodles.
and then you freeze some red cabbage in noodle strips, and then
Yeah.
you throw
Okay.
some bean sprouts on it. You got a really great noodle base that has so many different textures and flavors and colors to put your
Yeah.
pad thai sauce or whatever the heck you want on it.
Right.
It's a boom, it's so darn good. And
Oh,
otherwise
oh,
too, if you want, you can like take some shredded cabbage that's frozen and squeeze some lemon on it, and put whatever the heck you on it. It's like a really quick sauerkraut that didn't even have to be
yeah.
fermented, but is just ready right now if you want it,
Right
right?
now.
Like
It's
right now,
so interesting
exactly.
because what that does is it gives you a different texture. And that's
Yeah.
that's what we love. We love that's why we're eating food in a lot of ways is because we're experiencing these different textures. It's one of our,
Yeah.
senses we like to tap into. And yeah, having these tips and these tricks is another way to get these different textures into because I personally I love broccoli, but I'm not going to eat a whole crown of broccoli. But we did
Mhm.
Kendalize a
Mhm.
crown of broccoli, and we had Chef Yin, who Chef Yin is another one of the contributors to this year's Raw Vegan Bundle.
Yeah.
Just a little quick plug: go get the bundle.
Check
Tap Chris's link.
it
Go
out.
get the
Check it out.
bundle. Today's the last day. Chef
Final.
Yin's book, man. Oh my gosh. So we had the beef and
So good.
broccoli that we
Me
made,
too.
and it was the first time I feel like I don't really remember when the last time we did broccoli was. The last time we kendalized broccoli, which is freezing
Yeah.
and thawing. For those of you maybe joining in right now, freeze your vegetables, then thaw it out. Boom. It's like it's been el dente steamed. Just
Yeah.
oh, so good.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could eat a whole crown of broccoli kendalized. Like, this is so good. It was a little bit more fibrous, but still
Yeah.
had that steamed vibe.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I,
It's
I
definitely,
I
yeah,
had that same one, and beyond it being an amazing texture experience, and just making it so that I try with some of the recipes, and I know all of us do, and that's part of the purpose of the bundle here, is
yeah,
to make it so that you don't miss your old
right.
favorite foods. So you,
Yeah,
you have raw food alternatives that
Well,
again, make it so you're not pulling that elastic back. You're
yeah.
quenching those
Yeah.
cravings in a way that is
What
healthier and feels
what would
great.
you say? What would you say to someone who is like, "Oh, you're trying to make raw food be more like a cooked food dish. Like you have your pizza, which, if you guys don't know who Chris Kendall is, he's like the pizza king. He's got
Yeah.
other books, raw vegan pizzas. But, we've had people be like, Nate, dude, you're trying to make raw food like cooked food, man. It's because you still have cleansing to do. You have parasites that are calling, hey, give me
Yeah.
some processed food. What would you say to that when trying to make dishes like your favorite
Yeah.
cooked meal? What would you say?
I thought you were going to go down a different route with that, and I'll mention that after because there's another
Okay,
aspect to
good.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, but I mean, first off, I'd say like, hey, I mean, I just really enjoy those dishes. I mean, I'm drawn to them, and maybe I have some emotional attachment to them, or maybe I have some nostalgic attachment
Mhm.
to them. I'll be honest with that.
Yeah,
Sure, like maybe if I just ate, some pineapple and a head of lettuce, I'd feel maybe a little better. Maybe, but
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
not. Because
Right.
enjoyment is a part of it, feeling satisfaction is a part of it, feeling
Mm,
like you're not missing out is a part of it.
mm,
Having foods that you can have at special occasions, sharing with others, getting other people interested so they aren't looking at you like all the
mm,
time, like you're just eating that, like all of these things can be a part of it. And
mm.
at the end of the day, too, it's like, hey man, it's my journey. I enjoy this. This is what makes me feel great, and I'm happy with doing this. So that's why I do it. Um, if someone else doesn't want to include it, you don't have to. I'm not sitting on a soapbox saying that everyone needs to kendalize. I'm just saying, hey, that's an option. Like, if you want to kendalize something, it's a different taste experience.
I'll get on that
It can make
soapbox,
this,
bro. Hey, you guys
yeah.
need to start kindlizing your vegetables. Come on.
I mean, it can make it easier in many, many ways because, again, it can meet that need for, say, soft, tender vegetables and hardier vegetables if you enjoy them. It can save you money because a lot of times, like I said, you might get a discount box of something, or in season things are cheaper if you buy them a bunch at a time. Make it more convenient so you can just buy a whole bunch, prep it, put it in the freezer, portion sizes, and then
Yeah,
at any time you want, you just pop it out and it's ready. And
that's huge.
it's just good for storage and always having backups too, because
Yeah,
even when I'm completely out of fresh produce, I'm like, whoa, what do I have frozen? And I check it out, and then I can make a curry real quick. Okay, I'll go to the grocery store tomorrow.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's that aspect, and the other angle that I thought you're maybe going to go was that like I've heard people say that with that as well as with, say, making. Let's say you try and make burgers, and they're like, why are you trying to make meat? It's like, well,
Right.
I didn't stop eating meat or stop eating cooked food because I didn't enjoy them. I stopped because it wasn't serving me anymore. It wasn't bringing me the peace of mind, the
Mm,
mergence with my ethics, or the feeling of satiety and clarity and high energy that I wanted.
mm,
But this allows me to still enjoy those kind of flavors, those kind of
yeah,
textures, while at the same time being aligned with my ethics and leading me to feel great. And
yeah.
like you said too, even with the contrast, it's interesting because as I said, like maybe if I just had a pineapple and lettuce, I'd feel a little bit better. Well, what I really found was if I went off the deep end and went off of the diet, like I would feel crap, but I'd be
Mm,
attracted to more and more and more
mm,
crap. And it'd
mm,
bring like a doom loop where I'd be like, well, I
yeah.
already slipped up. I'm a failure. So I might as well try
Mm,
this and this and this and this
mm,
and this and this and this. Whereas instead, if
mm,
I candleize it, or if I have something simple, and something that still mimics those flavors, I enjoy the hell out of it. I
mhm,
still feel good. But then the next day, I'm actually thinking, you know what? I actually kind of just want to have my meal of cherimoyas and
mhm,
like eat kind of light. It's like
mhm,
it actually keeps me in the same kind of mode of like, hey, this is great to have, and I'm gonna have it anytime I want, but it doesn't put that doom spiral of, oh my gosh, I'm a failure, now I'm gonna do this. And part of that is unwinding, the whole cooked food myth and the thoughts and beliefs we have around foods, but also some of it is just clear observation, like you talked about before. That contrast is so important. It
yeah.
is how we learn, and we're slow learners, and we generally need to knock our head against something a dozen times before we really, really get it. And sometimes we may not fully get it ever, and some people may just choose that forever, and that's fine. Choice and consequence, right?
Mhm,
But I'm a,
mhm,
I'm a huge advocate of being fully, fully honest with oneself, and if we want to experience something, there's only a certain amount of time before that elastic band is going to snap, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, it's I think it's really healthy to be aware of that, to check in with ourselves and go, okay, well, why am I desiring this? What is missing? Is there something else I can do? And if not, and if that's genuinely what we want to experience, to do so with complete
Mm,
presence, make it a meditation, have zero guilt, shame, or judgment of self on it, and clearly experience it. Because I
mm,
really truly believe we're experiential beings. And if we do not experience something with full presence, we're going to be doomed to repeat it again because we didn't fully experience it and we were doing it haphazardly, hidden with guilt in a closet with no one watching.
mm.
And then it's like, hey, what happened there? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
and we didn't experience
Yeah.
it, right? So we get stuck in that loop. So I think all of these things kind of come back to that same kind of viewpoint, right? It's like
Mhm,
if we can have patience, acceptance, and in the moment presence, it's going to
mhm,
make a huge difference in our overall health and our streamlined approach to raw food.
mhm. Love that, man. Yeah, that is so true too, to be fully present when you are having something that maybe isn't in alignment with what you want to be having, but for some reason, you're being drawn to it. And yeah, like you
Mhm.
said, it's not like you're not eating these foods because you didn't like the taste or
Yeah.
the fellowship that comes along with it or the
Yeah.
textures. But man, how fun is it? When I went raw, I was like, this is so much fun because
Yeah.
maybe you're trying to like create something like, I live with Lissa, like she's the raw food
Yeah.
recipe creator
Dude,
of
you're
the
so freaking lucky. You're so
bro.
freaking lucky.
I know, like I literally like I was like in tears when she was serving me sushi. Like literally, like I was like, I cannot even believe what I'm looking at right here. This is unbelievable.
Oh,
And it's so fun to see her in that space where she's just so creative. She just really
yeah.
wants to create an experience, and
Mhm.
she just enjoys what she does. She wants to make a raw food dish that is, like a cooked dish like you do with your pizza, trying to get these same kinds of, because it's so interesting. There are a lot of nostalgic moments growing up with certain foods. And
Huge.
yeah, and even like you said, even if, one was to be like, you know what, I'm gonna have this whatever it is, but be
Mhm.
fully present with it. Don't shame, don't guilt yourself. Just enjoy
Yeah.
it. Be present. See how you feel, especially
Yeah.
if someone is like eating a high raw or all raw diet and they go to eat, whatever it may be, like let's say it's just like traditional pizza.
Mhm.
Most likely, if that individual is present, they're gonna feel it. They're gonna be like, man, I don't know if it was worth what I felt right here, because it's
Yeah.
all like right here. After that,
That's
it's
it.
just,
That's it.
oh
It,
my
it
gosh, man.
becomes so apparent if you're
Hmm.
aware of yourself and your energy and like you're like kind of,
Yeah,
like all those different aspects before, during, and after. What I've found, for myself and coaching others, the vast majority of the time, it's not what we built it up to be in our head, and all of a
totally.
sudden we're like a little bit disappointed in it,
Yeah,
and that can be a really good thing actually, because then you're like, oh,
yeah,
I all of a sudden lost that negative pull towards it,
yeah.
and
Right.
like and again, if we label it as bad and us bad, well then when we feel bad and we feel like crap, we're going to be pulled directly to it. And then if we're
Yeah,
like having our head down and we're distracted and we're not thinking about it, again, we're not going to experience it and we're just going to be in that doom loop, right? But
yeah,
if we have that wherewithal and that patience and self-love and presence there, it's so much more likely we're going to release that
yeah,
and instead come with that contrast to be like, you know what, this actually feels better and I want this. And
yeah,
to me, that's true food freedom, when you're doing what you're doing because you want to, not because you think you should. You think it's better for you. You think that if you don't do it, you're less than and you're not going to
mhm,
achieve your goals. You'll never be healthy.
yeah.
That's not really the healthiest place to be applying the lifestyle. And
No.
most of us go through that. I'm not shaming
Yeah,
that either. Don't
yeah.
I don't want to put shame on top of someone else's shame. I don't want to triple
Right.
shame,
Part of the
you know?
process. Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the
Oh
process. And
man.
hopefully, this information and all the amazing recipes in the bundle and busting these myths and so many other, you can't kill my vibe that's in the bundle, and so many other amazing resources can really help reinforce this and
Yeah,
bring it home. So this lifestyle is just more approachable, easier, more fun, and we're growing in health because we want to, because we love it, and because it really fits our values inside and out.
yeah. It's so Oh, good, man. And we're just sending everybody who is choosing this self-love and feeding themselves, supporting themselves through life, eating more fruits and vegetables, maybe predominantly raw. It just you're sending out, like, if we are electrical beings, we're sending out different pulses of electricity when we're out and about in the world, and other people sense that. And like, I love that
Yes.
"Don't Kale My Vibe." That's such a great
Yeah,
title.
I,
That's
I love that too. I
yeah,
love that
she
too.
she did good with that. So here, let's scroll through here. I know we've been rocking for an hour, and bro, I know you and me, we could go for like 3 hours straight.
That
let's
hour went by
let's roll in
fast,
here.
brother. That went really fast.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
So Wendy, I'm so glad that they love the dip. DM me and we can kind of dig into the peas a bit more. So Tessa says here, Nate and Chris, awesome IG live. So many insightful takeaways. I feel empowered and free mentally in my nutritional journey. Now, Tessa is one of our rock stars in our raw food romance community. Tessa, we love you so much. And I do love that she tunes in and she's absorbing this information, right? And of course, it's the same thing. It's the rock in the pond. I know that other people in her world are picking up on what she's absorbing. So glad that you're here. Mary says here, putting all that oil, I think this is probably the liver gallbladder one. Putting all that oil in your body is harmful to one's liver.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Not
Absolutely.
not ideal and built on a fallacy in the first
Yeah.
place. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Great marketing.
yeah,
Amazing marketing.
great.
Like,
Yeah,
this
and
is the part that's so interesting, is looking at how certain people market, and you're like, wow. Like, the whole absolutism. Like, I didn't really even kind of e- embody that lens to be able to see, like, oh, there's an absolute, oh, that's kind of a red flag, like that's an all, like, you'll never, you'll never da da da, yeah, this is only going to happen if you buy my program, like, it's so interesting, like, brilliant marketing, because
yeah,
there's always going to be people out there who are going to be, everybody's experiencing what they need to experience for the evolutionary of their soul, right? Like, so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
now
yeah. It's an interesting and a tough one at
it
times, right? But
is it
there
is
is that aspect to it. But the sad reality too is that it's generally the people that need it the most and that are the most desperate that fall for these things
yeah,
and get, taken. And
sure,
I just really want to say that
yeah,
for the absolute most part, I truly believe that people promoting this for the absolute most part are
mm,
very well intentioned, that they really believe that it's true, and they're just like
sure,
they're so tickled pink that it's the best marketing ever too, that it is
yeah,
true and it's the best marketing and it's going to help spread this message to the world,
yeah,
and it does, because it goes viral way more than me talking about kendalizing.
sure,
I'm sorry, like
it really
it
does.
just it just does,
Hyper sensationalized, super extreme. It is so true, man. And I mean, it's just interesting how far we've come from nature. Like, I feel
Yeah.
that most people feel really amazing when they just stop eating and drinking processed junk food like products. Like, every
Yeah.
camp, it doesn't matter what health and wellness tribe you may prescribe to,
Yeah.
everybody can agree the processed food is not food. But it's so interesting. There's so many different emotions. We're such complex beings, and these products are brilliantly formulated,
Yeah.
and they're everywhere, and they're dirt
Yeah.
cheap, and it's just
Yeah.
like, wow. And then you're like so extreme when you're eating, like, you're only eating like fruits and vegetables and some nuts and seeds. It's so
I
fascinating.
I
um
love it. I just
yeah,
want to say too, I
uh,
just love that because like it is so common for people to think that what we're doing is extreme, and it's
yeah,
like it's really the exact opposite. It's like
yeah,
when you look at all the freaking billions of living beings on
sure,
the planet since the dawn of
yeah,
time eating an all raw diet according to their physiology,
yeah,
generally one at a time when hungry till full, like
yeah,
us eating fruits and vegetables that are within our biological physiological design is
yeah,
the least extreme thing you can
it
possibly do.
is.
But everyone eating these crazy processed foods with unknown ingredients
Right.
and chemically put together in such a way to ring
Ah,
every single button within you to drive you to buy more.
it's
That's the
magic.
experiment.
It's an
It's
experiment.
magic. It
It's
is crazy.
total, like, alchemy magic. These guys are wizards creating these, like, and we need more crunch. Oh, like, we need it to be, it's so interesting. But yeah, like you said, it's the furthest away from extreme.
Yeah.
Grant asked me this question. He's like, yeah, some might call this extreme. And I'm like, I agree. Like, eating raw food is totally extreme. It's sad that it is that way,
Yeah.
but to
Yeah.
the average
Yeah.
mind's eye, it is
Yeah.
the most extreme, one of the most extreme things you can do,
Yeah.
and but it's not at the same time,
No.
like, but that's how far we've been removed from nature
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
community and, just totally out of touch in so many ways with our food. But
Yeah.
it is cool to see, different circles kind of coming back.
Hmm.
People are, they're questioning. There's a lot of things in the world, especially with the access that we have to social media, a lot of things that make you go,
Yeah.
and some of those
Yeah.
things can be
Make you go.
beneficial.
Yeah.
Now, here, Maura, I'm not sure if you're still in here and if I'm saying your name right, but this is a really good one. It's like, God healed me of stage 3 breast cancer in a year and a half of with raw and living foods, no conventional treatments. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is so, so amazing. And, there again, like, I love how you said God, was a part of that process. Like, understanding that we're co-creators, if you believe that way, and just releasing, like surrendering to the
Yeah.
process and just doing the work.
Hmm.
Like, sounds like she did the work, right, Chris? Like,
Yeah.
she did the work,
Absolutely.
but then she
Yeah.
released it, because it's so interesting how we can identify with an illness. That's who you are. Like, I grew up with asthma. I was an asthmatic my pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
Inhaler, and I could introduce you. Hey, what's up? My name's Nate. I'm an asthmatic. You know
It's
what I mean? Like, we can
marketing.
identify with. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Tessa says, "Congratulations. Looks we're good there." Ugh, those raw food purists, in my opinion, are just projecting their own guilt and shame tendencies.
It is common.
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
think that is common. And
yeah,
otherwise too, I do see the perspective that, hey, I just feel the absolute best when I do it this way. And if I do anything else, it's so clear to me that it's not helpful that I got to spread that message. And
right. Yeah,
but the thing that can be discounted there as well is like people react to different things differently.
yeah,
And our viewpoint and our rigidness and our judgment around those things also has an impact on how we experience things, right? So
yeah,
if you were coming from a total balanced, calm, relaxed place, you're going to experience putting thing in your mouth very differently than someone, while they're doing it going, this is bad, I shouldn't be doing this,
so
but
true.
like it's very different, right? So I understand both
Yeah,
perspectives and have
yeah,
empathy for people that, even attack and say, like, I've had people attack me and say,
yeah.
like, you're just in it for the money because you eat a green onion. And it's like, oh my gosh, like,
Oh my
okay.
gosh. I would say that you're probably one of the least likely people to be in it for the money out of a lot of the people that are out there.
I
I'm always
don't, I
thinking
don't
like
like
Chris
money to
needs
be a
to do
motivation.
more. He needs more. Like, bro, well, we've always said like you could blow up so huge, but I do appreciate, your stance and where you're coming from, and you can definitely feel it. You can definitely feel it, bro. We love you so much, brother.
Love you too, brother.
Lissa said here, this is a really good one too. I love the say, I love saying we should be more concerned with how animals become circle patty shapes than how plants do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's really
Yeah.
what it is. Like, people are like, that's not a burger unless it's
Mhm.
got beef, or it's so fascinating,
Yeah.
but it's understandable because I mean our whole entire lives, man. Like, I mean, no, people probably don't watch as much TV as they used to. Television, like, that was a powerful tool,
Oh yeah.
indoctrinating programming tool in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of positives to commercialism and that kind of thing. You
Yeah.
learn about new products and such, but it's what we know our whole life.
Yeah.
Like, it's, that's where one of these myths we didn't get into, like, where do you get your protein? People are
Yeah.
always asking, like, we get that. I get that probably like every single day.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Look at,
oh,
like,
yeah.
20 years and you're withering away over there, bro. Mid 40s now. Heather here says here, I get that a lot. People ask, why am I making a mushroom burger mimicking meat?
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll ever understand. Sometimes it can be tricky. Like you
Yeah.
said, Chris, it's, and Liz and I are in that same kind of boat. Like, we don't really get off on controversial topics. It can raise our blood pressure, and we can,
Mm.
sometimes, as humans, we're, you know, typically more reactive, and
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's nice to pull back and kind of gather some thoughts. But it's interesting because, yeah, like, what is it that, somebody wants to experience? I feel like it's so fascinating how, when I feel, shitty. Like, this last year, my parents passed away. I was eating oatmeal every single morning, like
Oh,
instant oatmeal, not the good kind, like the Quaker oatmeal. It's just quick and easy. Like, I just need to get,
yeah.
get some food in me. I was having like other cooked food products through the day, like processed cooked foods. Like we were eating, Beyond Meat burgers, which were absolutely delicious, and I really enjoyed it. And I look forward to having another one when I go back up to
Yeah.
Oregon. I drive tomorrow. But I was eating this on a daily basis. I was having some raw, not as much raw. I was doing like cooked soups, and
Mhm.
I made like 100 mushroom burger patties for my brother and sister, just quick and easy meals that they
Yeah.
could make. I was eating that. I ate bread for the first time in like nearly 10 years, and bro, I felt like I felt really shitty. I was like, wow, this food that I was eating was definitely a lot cleaner than
Yeah.
like going having the gas station chimichanga dipped in ranch with a Red Bull or whatever, starting your day off.
Yeah.
But I felt like crap, and I was like,
Yeah.
man, this how I feel right now. I was just imagining this is possibly how it feels for the average individual who eats the predominantly their food, calories are coming from processed foods.
Yeah.
This is probably them feeling their best,
Yeah.
right? Like, but
Yeah.
I felt like my worst. I was
Yeah.
like, man, I'm like, I'm having a smoothie today. I'm eating all raw today. Like, I need to not eat any cooked food today. No
Yeah.
processed anything. I had like some pretzels. And I wasn't guilting myself, but I just was like eating what was there, and I just wasn't
Yeah.
focusing on having raw. But it was so awesome to be able
Yeah.
to have that experience and
Yeah.
to feel like, man, I genuinely feel like fucking shit. Like I can't do this. This is like, but
To
I'm
do
like,
it with awareness.
yeah.
That's,
And
I mean, to
I'm
do it
like,
with awareness.
yeah, but
It's
it's
good.
crazy. It's like when we, not to be like, here we are, like up on this, mountaintop, we're like better than everybody.
Mm.
But we as raw foodies, when we feel like crap,
Mhm.
that's probably someone's like best
Yeah.
feeling. Like, they're, man, I felt so good. I had oatmeal for breakfast or whatever. Because
Yeah.
people don't really, I feel like the majority of people generally don't know what it feels like to actually feel good.
Yeah. Oh,
And I remember
huge.
when my dad was, I'd make him a salad. I'd make him one salad, bro. And he's like, I feel really good. Like the next day, he's like, man, could you make me another salad? I feel really good. And it's because he got more vitamins and minerals and hydrating nourishment. Maybe he's feeding the gut microbiome.
Mhm.
It's so into one salad. And he's like, I
Yeah.
feel so good.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how many people don't really know what it feels like to feel good.
Yeah.
And as much as, like we can take 80% of the information from people, leave the 20%, or vice versa. There's certain people out there who will be like, you're in for a
Mhm.
treat, right? There's, a guy out there who would say that, like, you're in for a treat,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you got to go on this journey. But what
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you're in for a treat. And I really do
Yeah.
feel like, man, like, yeah, a
Amazing
person's going to be in for a
delivery.
treat. Oh
Yeah.
man, you're going to
Yeah.
feel so good
Yeah.
eating the predominantly raw.
Mhm.
All raw is amazing. Is so
Yeah.
amazing, of course.
Yeah. I
Yeah, at least
couldn't
it's
agree
the
more, man. And I
yeah,
just want to mention too that like obviously, in trying times, there are different ways of coping, and
mhm,
cooked food is emotionally soothing, and it can really help us get through tough times. It's not the only option, but it is an option, and
yeah,
we wouldn't belittle or begrudge or judge someone for using a crutch when their leg's broken,
yeah,
and I wouldn't ever the same for for this journey. Everyone's on their own journey,
totally.
and there's so many ways of doing it, and obviously that served you and that was what you needed in that moment, otherwise you wouldn't have chose it, right? And
Yeah,
I think that's a beautiful thing to also be able to share and be honest with, and help others, because again, there's just too much shame and guilt around this, and it's
yeah,
like there's too much self-importance and ego around this, at
yeah,
least in terms of it being healthy. I like to
right.
always add context, because without context it's just, again, kind of black and white,
True.
and nothing is black and white. I love the saying. I know you'll resonate with it, but it's and only a Sith talks in absolutes,
Mm,
right? And it's like it's because at the heart of those absolutes there is some violence there,
yeah,
right?
right.
So,
So true.
yeah,
So true, man. Yeah, it's so interesting. And I know I remember, really trying to be in that space where I was present
yeah,
with what I was eating. I'm like, I'm enjoying this oatmeal, even though this is some Quaker oats.
yeah,
But it was such a nice like reality check,
mhm,
and yeah, I did feel like I needed it, and I feel really like blessed in a way to have had that experience, because now
yeah,
I know like what it feels like again to
yeah,
feel shitty. I was like, I just don't feel. I one smoothie, I started my day with a smoothie with some dates in it, and
Hmm.
I was like, man, I felt just so good. Like,
Yeah,
my body was like, yo, give us more of this. And it was
yeah,
it was so nice to bring, myself back into that loop to really, like, it was a good reality
yeah,
check.
yeah. It's
And
like a reminder, right?
a
That
reminder. It was a
contrast.
Totally. It was such a great contrast.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm going there. I'll be up in Oregon for about 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And, we've got a lot of like really stressful things that we've got ahead of us.
Mhm.
And, um, it's going to be tricky, but I did tell my brother, I was like, yo, get the green egg ready. He's got this smoker, it's a green
Oh
egg.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
My brother has
indirect.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm like, bro, I cannot wait to hand form some Beyond Meat
yeah,
patties. I totally know it's processed food. It's a science project food. It's not real, in a lot of ways, of course, like, and I'm going to have potato bun bread. I'm going to
yeah.
have the veganese, the mock cheese. I'm going all in on this
Are
burger
you
and I'm going to enjoy every single second of it.
are you
But of
gonna judge
course,
yourself, bro?
dude,
Are you gonna judge yourself, bro?
oh, bro, I'm gonna judge myself on like, do I want another one? Because that's how it feels. I'm like, I'm like not even done with this one. I'm thinking like, I'm gonna have two, 100%.
Yeah,
And it's gonna
yeah.
be a lot of fun. We're gonna have like, a good gathering.
Mhm.
I'm gonna make some raw dishes to, accompany the burger night. But we've been, talking about this burger night, and
Mhm.
it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
100%. It's not the optimum,
that's
meal,
yeah,
but I don't even care, man.
bro.
Like, the connection, and this is where it's so interesting. Liz and I have had these conversations because her view is completely like abstinence is it for her. Like, she knows
Yeah,
her own personality, she knows her own self. Like, she's like, I can't, like, she won't even eat one steamed flowerette of broccoli, not
yeah,
one. And that's cool, like, I
yeah,
love that. I
yeah.
so appreciate about her.
Mhm.
But for me, I'm like, you know what, like, I don't want to feel bad if I want to have something that's a vegan dish at a restaurant, or make some of these things once
Mhm.
in a while. Like, I choose raw because it makes the most sense. It
Yeah,
feels the best. Like,
yeah.
I do kind of like the concept, like, raw is law. I've
Mhm.
got another book I'm writing. I won't tell you the name here on social. I'll tell you
Yeah,
privately, but I'm super excited about this one. And it's so fascinating though, like, how powerful raw food is, man. Raw food is, and
absolutely.
it's so interesting that we are in this place where we have to explain, like,
Yeah,
why, and it's going
yeah.
to be okay, and you're gonna get, if you do it just like any diet, if you do it properly, eat enough calories, get some good
Mhm.
variety in there, rotate certain things,
Yeah.
it's you're going to get what you need. I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of people, like, you have the term, peace, love, and seasonal fruit. And the seasonal fruit thing is so massive.
Yeah,
Eating fruit with the
yeah.
seasons. I feel like a lot of people, especially here in the States, like, I'm not a world traveler. I haven't been all over the world, so I don't see like what's going on in different countries like you have. You've been all over the place. But a lot of people, I don't really feel like they even know what good fruit is even like, because a
Yeah.
lot of the fruit that we get in the stores, it's unripe, it's picked unripe, it's not going to ripen properly. And so generally, like, a lot of people are like, I don't really like fruit. It like makes me
Yeah.
gassy and bloated, and that could be like a microbiome thing, but it also could be just, unripe fruit. People don't
Yeah.
even know.
They
And
don't
there
know how to
again,
pick
like,
it.
they don't.
They don't know how to pick it, and they don't know when to eat it or how to eat
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So true, man.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And Wendy says here, cooked is so grounding too. Had this experience too, being pregnant. The Beyond weird texture. Yeah, the Beyond, like, I was like, are you, this is weird. This is like, I mean, it's been so long since I've had a ground, cow
Yeah.
burger or whatever, but it's fascinating. And of course, brilliant, brilliant. These
Amazing.
products are brilliant. People
Yeah.
are asking for,
Yeah.
more ethical choices. 100,
Yeah.
there's people like my mom, when she was on
Mhm.
her healing journey, she would stop people in the grocery store and, like, be like, I used to eat that before I found out I had cancer. And then, I'm like, oh shoot, like, here we
Mhm.
go. And some people just came here to party.
Yeah.
They didn't come
Yeah.
here to heal and, like,
Yeah.
whatever. Like,
For sure.
everybody's like really doing their own thing. And
Yeah.
some people, especially, we live downtown Las Vegas. You look out there, like, yeah, these people came here to
You
just get
see it.
fucked up.
You see the
Like,
zombies, bro. You
yeah,
see the
what I mean?
zombies.
Like, more
Oh,
power to them, man. Like,
of course.
it's we're here to experience. We
Yeah.
have all these different experiences,
Yeah.
and like you said, key thing is like being present, being like, gentle with yourself, letting yourself, really enjoy whatever it is you're doing. And then, I
Yeah.
think that's a great way to, really live in a lot of ways is to
Huge.
be present. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think ultimately, a overriding theme here is to thy own self be true, right? And
Hmm.
honor thyself and be
Yeah.
true and real with oneself and be present, accepting, loving, compassionate, and patient with oneself. And
Mm.
know that health, like number one health choice, doesn't have to be your choice every single time.
Mm.
And if it
Hmm.
isn't, that's still okay. That's still okay, right?
Yeah.
There's so
Yeah.
much more to life than that. And yes, it can be a big part of our life. Yes, in certain times, it may be the absolute number one at every single choice. And that's amazing
Yeah.
too. But
Yeah.
if that ever changes, it also doesn't mean that there need be shame, guilt, or, stress around it, right? There's
Right.
there's so much more to it. And all of these things impact our health, not just, what we put in our mouth
Oh,
directly, right? So,
massively.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's of course like we got to do this more, bro. Like we say it all the time, we really do, because there's a lot to talk about. I know I have like another like easy 7 8 questions that would be cool to get your perspective. But I love how Rosalind Graham talked about the wheel, right?
Mhm.
Like at the spokes in the wheel, there's the hub of the wheel, and all these spokes represent different aspects of our lives, and diet's just one of the spokes.
Yep.
And we can get so fixated on diet, but we forget like self-care. We forget community, being able
Yeah.
to like relate to other people. Because, with this lens on, it can be kind of that's where me and Lissa got along really well because we would just talk smack about the world together. And it's so interesting though how many different spokes do we have in our wheel, and every one of them needs attention, and
Yeah.
diet's only one. But of
Absolutely.
course, like it can be it's such a fascinating topic,
It is, man. And
diet.
it is food is often the weakest link for a lot of people because
Mm,
we talked about how crazy extreme this diet is, but how the reality is that the experiment people are running is the extreme experiment, and it
100%.
is it is again one of the weakest links. And
Yeah.
having that holistic view and being really honest with oneself and looking what our weakest links are, and measuring them all on occasion and checking where one is slipped,
Yeah.
and not stressing the one that you have near the 99
Yeah.
percentile, and instead being conscious of the one that's lower. Like
Mm,
I'm really a big a word person, and the difference between being concerned and being conscious is massive, right? If we're
mm,
concerned about something, there's negative based fear around it. If we're conscious of it, then there's love based empathy
mm.
and connection to it, right?
Dude,
And
that's good.
uh,
That's good right there. That's tattooable.
yeah, get it. I get 10%. No, I'm just
Oh man.
I'm joking.
Yeah, that is so good, bro. Well,
Let's
you know,
do this again. Let's do
let's
this
do it
again for
again.
sure.
And what would you like to say to wrap this up? Any like final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I love you, brother. I love all you guys out there. I hope that this message hits home and it helps you love yourself with more
Mm,
patience, more compassion. Just take it freaking easy on yourself and enjoy this journey. I think that's the big thing. Enjoy what you enjoy, and follow that, follow your heart, and be radically honest with yourself. And I
mm,
think that's going to really, really help with your overall health and well-being, physically, mentally, and emotionally, because
mm.
we're whole beings, right? So,
Yeah, I love that, brother. I love you too, man. Love you too. Big hugs from over here, Las Vegas. And yeah, we'll connect. We'll see you in the DMs. Thanks again for such a great bundle. This has been so fun. We only get these once a year.
yeah.
Be sure to grab the bundle, you guys. Last call. Like here, we're ending in just a few short hours. Wendy, so cool you joined. All you guys who joined in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll do this again. We definitely, bro. We got to. I'll,
Let's
I'll
do
be
it.
in Oregon, like I said, 6 weeks. Let's do again. I'll connect with you and we can figure out a couple of the things that we can talk about. I'd love to host you again and pick your brain. Such a great perspective. You're such a wealth of knowledge. And, I just really love how you move from the heart space. You're very tactical about how you approach certain things. And, I do feel that there was some gems today for sure.
Batting them back and forth, brother.
Yep.
Feel blessed as well. Thank you so
Heck
much.
yeah. Absolutely, brother. All right. We'll see you guys
See you,
later, homie.
everyone.
We'll talk to you
Hey,
soon.
yeah,
Yeah.
add me
Well,
as a collaborator, motherfucker.
oh, I will.
You know it. Yeah.
100%.
Oh, oh,
100%.
oh, oh.
All right, bro. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Love you guys.
Sounds good.